The hell is that?
There you are, Greg. Still messing with our visitors? They are making progress, but I doubt they'll get this far. Hearthkyn Salvagers. While we wait for them to tire out or run into something dangerous in these halls, why don't we take a moment and see what makes them who they are in Kill Team? Not a lot of rumbling on the Vox about their potential. They were a bit overshadowed by their beastly adversaries, but there have been a couple data slates released since then. Maybe we'll be able to see a direction the team is being pulled in as they take their place on the grand roster. Before that, real quick, this is YouTube, of course, so if you are new to the channel and are interested in tabletop gaming, maybe hit that subscribe button, possibly the like if you're interested. As well, we have a community Discord linked in the description below, where we show off projects, talk rules and list building, and even regale each other with tales of battle. We'd be happy to have you. All that being said, let's take a look at these kin and see what a life of living so close to the galactic core grants them. For reference, we are currently in the Q3 2023 data slate era. Always be sure to check for updates and changes to what we talk about here. We'll start with the team ability. This comes in two parts: Grudge and Steady Advance. Looking at Steady Advance, it is a passive ability that allows the kin to move an additional inch during a normal move action. Now, these squats aren't exactly fast. They suffer from a similar issue that Death Guard have: 4-inch movement. The key issue here is that the units only have 2 APL. If a Death Guard needs to get somewhere to shoot, it can simply move and dash. You would need to boost a Hearthkyn's APL prior to activating to achieve the same result. The 1-inch extra movement during a normal move elevates the team only slightly, as the normal move benefits, but their charge is still limited to 6-inch threat range. This is actually fine. The Hearthkyn are not a heavy close-range team. There are only really 2 specialists that I would consider melee focused, and one of them actually greatly benefits from this rule. The Jump Pack Warrior, being fast, has a 6-inch movement normally. This would allow it to normal move 7 inches. Further than most for one action point. Not the worst. The team still suffers from needing to really think of how to use its action points to best achieve the goals of the mission. A problem that is certainly not for the faint of heart. The other ability leans more into the core of what the Hearthkyn are: angry, vengeful. Grudge provides 2 things. If a Hearthkyn falls in combat due to the actions of an enemy operative, that operative gets a token that sticks with it for the rest of the game. An operative can have more than one of these, so the deadlier an enemy is, the more in danger it is. These tokens allow a Hearthkyn to retain a normal hit they roll as a crit instead. This is a key ability, as the general ballistic skill of the team is only 4+, 50% chance to hit with weapons that usually only fire 4 times. That would normally be a low damage output, but being able to upgrade to crits does help a little. The key issue is the trigger for this method of giving grudge tokens requires loss of Hearthkyn. A team that isn't quite Horde, but not quite elite either. By the end of a match, I doubt any kill team can easily retain all their units, but I also doubt many players are fine with losing units, especially early on, just to get some tokens in play. That is a loss of APL, which is a loss of ability to perform missions and capture points. Thankfully, the recent data slate has given the Hearthkyn Thane a new ability to try and mitigate this issue. More on that later. The Hearthkyn Ploys make up for many elements that they lack as a team. This makes them a little command point hungry, so if you're piloting the team, try and have a game plan that potentially looks 3 turns ahead to ensure you'll have what you need when you need it. Starting with the strategic ploys, need keeps. The Hearthkyn don't have a unit that resembles an icon bearer. Instead, for one command point, they can select a single objective on the field. Any Hearthkyn Salvager on that point is counted as having 1 more APL for the purpose of determining who holds it. Good on points that might require a lot of attention, but also great on outlier points you need to guarantee holding against only a small amount of enemies. Toil Urns is also used to select an objective. Enemies within 3 inches of it are treated as having 1 additional grudge token that is slightly further range than the usual capture distance, and this extra token is either one it just has or one on top of others it may have. Tie this in with a well-placed grenade, you could easily clear a handful of enemies. Rot Defense allows a Hearthkyn to upgrade a failed defense dice to a normal save, as long as you retain 1 or more critical save first. A bit sketchy in my opinion. Certainly an alright defense ploy, but Hearth can come with an elite 3+ save. Hopefully you aren't missing too many of those. Last for the strategics, Proximate Firepower is the 1 command point barrier to the Hearthkyn having access to a 3+ ballistic skill for most of their ranged weapons. The limit to this is that the shooting unit must be within 6 inches of the enemy. I feel this will be a must in most games for turn 2 and 3. The usual 4+ ballistic skill otherwise holds back this ranged heavy team. From the tactical ploys, we have the Ancestors Are Watching. When a friendly Hearthkyn is activated, use this to allow it to gain immunity to basic injury, as well as a free fight or shoot action. A key ploy when trying to achieve a pseudo 3 APL play. Worth It allows a Hearthkyn that has just been incapacitated to perform a free mission action. This appears to be both in and out of sequence. Depending on mission, this could be limited in use, but is yet another ploy meant to improve on the action economy the kin have. Hardy is used at the very beginning of the roll defense dice step of a shooting attack, so just before the roll itself. This will change all your opponent's critical hits to normal hits. Sadly, this won't undo any triggered effects from the crits like P1 or mortal wounds. Good against very spiky damage weapons though, like plasma guns. Rampart is a tac ploy used during the scouting phase that gives you 1 of 3 options. You can resolve a fortify scouting option on top of your initiative-based choice, only if that choice wasn't also fortify. You can select a piece of terrain within 3 inches of your deployment and upgrade it from light to heavy terrain, or you can select one of your barricades on the field and upgrade it to heavy terrain. That third option is incredible when you consider the ranged nature of the team. This would allow a unit in Conceal to sit on the barricade without worrying about enemy vantage. It would also allow one of the gunner variants to abuse obscuring quite effectively from the ground. Something to consider when establishing your overall plan. These squats bring both security and recon for their basic archetypes of missions. Security will probably be the most common choice, although recon certainly has its moments. The Tac Op missions the Hearthkyn specifically bring to the table are odd. The simplest of these is Settle Grudges. I do love a good kill tracking mission. It can be revealed whenever, and its reveal starts a grudge tally. Simply put, bring down any enemy with a grudge token in a turn, get 1 point on the tally. You can only gain a tally score once per turn, so revealing this early shouldn't be too much of an issue. The problem is, you need to do this for 3 of the 4 turns to get full score. Hypothetically, if you table your opponent in turn 3 and didn't get a grudge tally in turn 1, you can only get 1 point on this. The buff to the Thane will help with the mission a bit, but it isn't just a straightforward get kills, get points mission. Be aware of this. Excavate is the start of the elaborate big action point missions. It is revealed when a kin performs a 2 action point mission action. This must be performed on an objective more than 6 inches from your drop zone. You only need to perform this action once, but it places a token on the center of the objective that can be picked up only by Hearthkyn allies. At the end of the game, if you are in control of the token, you get 1 point. You must be carrying it for full score. The cost of the excavation action is mitigated by a piece of equipment you can give to your units. As well, the Lugger also mitigates it, as he does with all mission actions. Rig Sight is a more specific tac op than Excavate. For one, there must be a piece of terrain with a vantage point on it. That terrain feature must also be outside of 6 inches from your drop zone. The fun doesn't end there. This tac op must be revealed before using the ability. It doesn't trigger as it happens, so timing is key. You will also need 2 Hearthkyn within an inch of this piece of terrain. One must be on the vantage point, the other must not be on the vantage point. Either can perform the action, and this will net the first point for that Tac Op. At the end of the battle, the Hearthkyn must hold this terrain feature with more APL than their enemy to get the last point. Very elaborate and APL heavy missions. Thankfully, both 2 APL actions are mitigated in some way, and both only need to be performed once. A mercy for this 2 APL team. Choosing which to take will vary game to game. Even though I feel like Rig Sight is more easily achievable than it seems at first, there is certainly no reason to take this in a close quarters mission. And even though I am a sucker for kill tally missions, Excavate can be a solid choice of a hidden mission that you leave on the table until turn 4, and just focus on surviving and fighting until you can easily just do it that turn. The gear the Hearthkyn have access to leans a bit into their advanced technological nature, as well as the sort of mining theme they have. Rock and stone indeed. They have access to one type of grenade, the gravitic concussion grenade. Anti-infantry at its finest for this type of thing. All the same stats as a regular frag grenade, but with 1 more damage on the crit. This will certainly be looking for use in tandem with multiple grudge targets, possibly from the Toil Earns ploy. The plasma knife was enhanced from the data slate and exists as a means to give your ranged heavy units potential to survive in melee. 4 attacks, sadly on a 4-up to hit, but with the benefit of lethal 5. Decent with the 3-5 damage line. Climbing equipment tries to help the limited mobility the kin have. You treat the first 6 inches of a climb as 2. It can climb up to vantage points without the need of a wall or ladder leading up to it. As well, drops are treated as half distance. This can be very useful on maps with a lot of verticality. Weave Field Crest is a Thane-only item, probably a must-have if your opponent has any AP weapons. It provides a 3-inch area around the Thane that confers a 4+ invulnerable to all allies, including the Thane of course. Excavation tools are related to the second faction Tac Op, but also confer an interesting mobility function. You can only take 3 of these total, and from what I can tell, for each one you have, you get to place a clearance token on the field. This token must be within 1 inch of a part of terrain that is outside of 6 inches of the enemy deployment zone. That terrain must have the traversable trait. This token allows any allied Hearthkyn moving past this terrain within 1 inch of the token to not have to spend the 2 inches on the traverse. This will most likely be placed on any barricades used in the game outside of potential pipes and other such simple terrain. Don't underestimate these. Remember, the kin are limited in their movement. You'll need to get everything you can out of the limited speed they have. Last up is the Auto Calibrator, a device that ensures the user won't have its ballistic skill affected by a modifier. Simple, effective. When placed on units you plan on using as often as possible with Overwatch or Guard, it's hard enough hitting on 4-ups. 5-ups would be brutal. Starting off with the basic unit, the Warrior. 4-inch movement, 2 APL, 1 GA, 3 defense, 3+ save, 8 wounds. Slow, but curiously durable. Their ranged options are between the Autok Pattern Bolter or the Ion Blaster. Both with 4 shots, 4 up to hit, and a 3-4 damage line. The Autok comes with Ceaseless for the rerolls of 1. The Ion Blaster brings P1. Good when paired with Grudge tokens. There are 4 specialists who get the same choice of weapons, but each have unique abilities. The Lugger is the mission action unit. If brought into battle, you can take 5 more equipment points worth of items. It can perform mission actions and pickup actions for 1 less AP down to 0. This doesn't stack with the Shovel for the second faction tac, but this unit could move onto the point and use the action for 1, letting a second unit move on and pick up the item right away. It can also re-equip an allied unit for 1 action point. This has some limits. If the unit has the ability to bring different weapons to battle, you can change to an alternate. This Thane with a bolter and gauntlet could be swapped into a plasma pistol, plasma sword combo when it is time to go close range. However, if you start with these 3 gunners in play, you couldn't swap the missile launcher to another rotary cannon, as only one can be brought in. And the way it is described in the FAQ, even if the rotary cannon dies in combat, another gunner couldn't then get the weapon. I feel this rotation of weapons could happen though, just not efficiently. In order to rotate the weapon, you would first have to change the rotary cannon to another unused weapon. The missile launcher could then become the rotary, an interesting function that will probably see limited use. The locator has a powerful map control ability. It prevents the enemy squad from setting up outside the kill zone, devastating for many teams like the Wormblade or the Hyrotech. They also prevent units from moving out of their deployment zone before the battle begins. This prevents recon scouting from letting you leave your deployment. It is an ability that restrains teams like the Chaos Cult and the Phobos. Anything with speed is a focus, really. Pan Spectral Scan can be used for an action point. This places a token anywhere in the kill zone the kin chooses. Any enemy within 3 inches of this token, when shot at, will be under the effect of the no cover special rule as well. A powerful unit against many teams. The Cognitar brings even more controlling power to the team. In each strategy phase, you can use this unit's Tactician ability instead of a ploy. This allows you to place either an attack or defend token anywhere in the kill zone. The attack token allows shooting attacks made against enemies within 3 inches to reroll 1 attack dice for free. The defend token allows allies within 3 inches to reroll 1 defense dice for free. These tokens vanish at the end of the turning point. Free rerolls are truly powerful for any team, and this is very comboable. More on that in a minute. For 1 action point, it can use Accelerated Appraisal. It allows you to remove that prior token and place a new one during the turning point. The last of the warrior-esque specialists is the Kinlink. For 1 action point, it provides any ally Hearthkyn visible to and within 6 inches of it 1 APL. A second 1 action point ability allows you to select 1 enemy operative in line of sight and provide it a system jam token, as long as it doesn't already have one. This is immensely powerful. It prevents the unit from activating until all other units on that team without jamming tokens have gone. This token is removed after that activation. This can be used on units that have already gone, which can throw a wrench in the plan of any team, as this unit has the potential to put 2 enemies in a stuck position at the beginning of a turn. Beyond brutal. Before getting into the really specialized units, let's go over the gunners. They have 5 weapon options. First up, the Edikarn Plasma Beamer, a really unique weapon. 4 attacks, 4 up to hit, 4/6 damage line, AP 2. The beam critical roll. Beam is big here. Every critical rolled on the target operative triggers D3 mortal wounds along a single line drawn from the source of the attack through the target. This goes to the board edge beyond the target and is only stopped by heavy terrain. These mortal wounds don't hit the target of the attack, only the extra operatives. Positioning is key with this. Try not to hit your allies. Or do. Live your life. The High-Las Auto Rifle. 4 attacks, 4 up to hit, 3/4 damage, Relentless Rending. One of the weakest weapons on the list, but don't underestimate Relentless Rending in the hands of a low ballistic skill unit with grudge tokens. High-Las Rotary Cannon. 6 attacks, 4+ to hit, 3/5 damage, Ceaseless Fusillade Heavy Scan. Scan is a unique function that simply prevents enemy operatives from being obscured when choosing targets for shooting. Obscuring abuse to the maximum with this weapon. The L7 Missile Launcher, a decently adaptable weapon for anti-elite and anti-horde. Both profiles are 4 attacks on a 4-up. The Blast has a 3/5 damage line with a Blast 2 rule. The Focused has a 5/6 damage line with an AP 1 rule. Good to keep options open. Last up, the Magna Rifle. 4 attacks, 4 up, 5/4 damage line with an AP 2. Unwieldy special rule, mortal wounds 3. Kin mobility is already really bad. Bringing a Magna Rail and a rotary cannon will further slow your team down, although holding backline locations would be ideal for these two. And grudge tokens tied with the mortal wounds on this gun could make any elite team start to sweat. On to the more focused specialists. The Jump Pack Warrior. the only kin with 6-inch movement. It comes with an Tac pattern bolt pistol, 4 attacks, 4 up, 3/4, range 6, and ceaseless. More importantly, it has a plasma axe, 4 attacks, 3 up, 5/5. For its abilities, if it charges, this axe gains the brutal special rule. For 2 action points, this unit gets to fly in a straight line up to 12 inches, one of the fastest units in Kill Team. For 1 action point, it can set up a climbing rig while on a vantage point. This provides all allied units moving on this terrain within 1 inch of the token placed horizontally, infinitely vertically, the same benefits as the climbing equipment. One might want this unit in melee right away, but the utility it has shouldn't be underestimated. The Hearthkyn Grenadier brings even more utility to the field. Beyond its pistol and fists, it brings a C8 HX charge. 4 attacks, 3 up to hit, 4/6 damage, range 4, blast 1, AP 1. Indirect, limited. A beautiful anti-elite attack with the +1 ballistic skill in place, hitting on 2s. Powerful. This unit also gets a 4+ feel no pain against blast, splash, and torrent weapons. It comes pre-equipped for free with a gravitic concussion grenade. This will prevent you from taking it on a different unit. The big utility comes from the VAR 3 grenade. For 1 action point, you can place a token within 6 inches of this unit. No need for vision. That token will have 1 of 3 special rules until the end of the turning point. Operatives passing within 3 inches of this token will need to spend 2 inches to move into that area. Operatives within 3 inches will have their weapons gain the range 6 rule. Or operatives within 3 inches will have to spend an additional action point on mission actions or pickup actions. That does include your own operatives, so be careful with this. All of these options have real purpose and, more importantly, can be used from conceal. The field medic comes with a bolt revolver, 4 attacks at a 4 up, 3/5 damage, range 6. It also has a plasma knife with the same rules as the equipment option. Common medic abilities. Combat Surgery allows the first Hearthkyn that is incapacitated within 3 inches of this medic that isn't the medic itself to survive at 1 wound with a reduction in APL for both the medic and ally. The 1 action point cost metapack allows this unit to heal a nearby ally for 2d3. This of course cannot be used on a unit that was saved by Combat Surgery in the same turn. Basic, simple. The Dozer gets a bolt pistol and its signature concussion Nux. 4 attacks, 3 up to hit, 4/4 damage, ceaseless, lethal 5 with stun. Decent function against 8 wound or less units that aren't melee focused. It also has Brawler, which prevents enemies from receiving combat support and allowing it to strike one last time before it falls in melee combat. Its Nux Smash is usable for 1 AP against enemies in engagement range. This enemy is moved up to 3 inches by the Hearthkyn player, and it suffers D3 + 1 mortal wounds. If that D3 damage is 3, it also gets hit by stun. This move doesn't involve fly and can't pass through terrain, other operatives, or off the kill zone. Lastly, the Hearthkyn leader, the Thane. Many weapon options here. It must select a ranged weapon and melee weapon to pair up. No restrictions on combos. The common ranged weapons are the Tac pattern bolter and its pistol variant, as well as the ion blaster and pistol variant. We've seen the bolt revolver in the hands of the medic, so the more Thane-specific gun is the Etakarn plasma pistol. 4 attacks, 4 up, 3/5 damage, range 6, AP 1. Safer than the normal plasma pistol, but less damage. Melee options have the Jump Pack Trooper's plasma axe. Beyond that, the concussion gauntlet has 4 attacks, 3 up, 5/6 damage, stun. The plasma sword has 4 attacks, 3 up, 4/6 damage, lethal 5. Both great options for melee. The ability the Thane has received a decent buff in the data slate. Originally, you could place a grudge token on an enemy when this unit activated. Now, this ability is triggered in the strategic ploy phase in place of a ploy. You still place 1 grudge token on an enemy. A great improvement for unit activation sequences. The second part of the buff is that if 3 or more kin are down and out, you get to place a token on 2 enemy operatives. A good spike in damage when times get dire. A vast amount of unit options here. Let's take a look at what makes for a potentially worthwhile roster. 20 slots to fill. Let's get into it. First up, all gunners, 5 slots. The high-las rifle might not seem worth it most of the time, but if you need mobility overall, reducing your heavy and unwieldy weapons to 1 would be very beneficial. From the one-off specialists, we snag a medic, dozer, jump pack warrior, and a grenadier, 9 slots filled. The 4 weapon option specialists, in my opinion, should always be active. If possible, taking 2 of each for each weapon option can be good. This is because the bolter with ceaseless is slightly better for consistent damage, and the ion blaster is the best basic option for anti-elite when paired with grudge tokens and the close range ballistic skill ploy. The way I bought these units involved 1 specialist box and 1 warriors box. This limited my cognitar and lugger down to 1 option, which I'm fine with. Depending on how you do this, it will be between 6 or 8 units on the list. You'll need a Thane or 2. I went with a close and ranged option. Plasma pistol and plasma sword on 1, bolter and gauntlet on the other. If you had all of the option-based specialists, you could add 1 more unit. Another Thane option, a warrior, it would be your choice really. My roster ended at 17 after all specialists and the 2 Thanes, so I finished out with 3 warriors with a spread of gun options. My thinking is that units like the dozer, medic, grenadier, or even potentially the jump pack warrior might not be worth it for a map or matchup, but more downranged fire over time could be useful. In these rare instances, I would replace some of the specialists with warriors. So, for my roster, these 20 will have their spots, but your own roster could have some minor tweaks and adjustments based on your personal tactical feel. I feel like as long as you can adapt between the few close range units they have and an all range list, you should be fine. Something I've come to love about the Hearthkyn is their stacking combos for attacks. A lucky moment of initiative and positioning can net an extreme amount of damage. For instance, we have a grenadier in Conceal, tucked behind a wall a bit away from an objective, covered in chaos cultists. A scary prospect. The Hearthkyn get initiative for the round. It's time to show them the anger of the kin. In the strat phase, the Cognitar drops an attack token on the point in the best position to cover many of the cultists. The Thane also chucks a bonus grudge token in on top of any others. Ploys are then set as proximate firepower for the bonus ballistic skill, as well as toil urns, marking that same objective as the source for all the bonus grudge tokens. First activation. The Grenadier can get within grenade range with a dash, but that would leave it in the open, and we would want it to live after if possible. It swaps to engage and burns the tactical ploy the ancestors are watching. After a dash, it throws its gravitic concussion grenade, getting 3 cultists in the 2-inch blast. The stacking effect is this. The grenade was thrown from 6 inches, meaning the 3+ to hit is now a 2+. On top of that, the attack token gives each of the shooting attacks 1 free reroll to hit. On top of that, depending on how many grudge tokens are in this pile, any of those normal hits that are almost guaranteed can be upgraded to crits. For horde units like cultists, this all but guarantees multiple incapacitations. Since that shooting attack was free, thanks to the ploy, the Grenadier has a 5-inch normal move to get back to cover, safe and sound. One more strategy I'd like to point out happens in the beginning of the game. Placing a barricade in or near your deployment zone with good sight lines on the rest of the kill zone is a good idea for this, but placement is key. For 1 command point, Rampart is used in the scouting phase to upgrade the barricade to a heavy trait. Then, when you deploy, you can place the high-las rotary cannon in engage outside of 2 inches of this barricade. This is a simple combo that allows you to place an obscuring piece of terrain that would set up your rotary cannon to freely threaten whole areas of the kill zone without fear of return fire. There are a lot of unit interactions and stacking effects for these squats. It gives them a ton of utility. Sadly, as of right now, they don't seem to be doing well in tournament play. Maybe there isn't a big enough sample size of players. Maybe their 4-inch movement is truly a major detriment. I was surprised to hear they don't do well. I imagine most people who play non-elite teams would love the 3+ save of an elite team. Having 10 units with 8 wounds and that save should make them more durable than most guardsmen in Aldari. But maybe the lack of speed that comes with it is insurmountable for scoring points. Their weapons options are also very impressive for anti-horde and anti-elite, but that 4+ to hit really cuts down on the damage consistency when not using the ploy from close range. It's difficult to say for sure. Do you have any experience with the Hearthkyn Salvagers? How do you think they feel after the most recent data slate buff? Have you seen improvements in matched play, or any play really? Let us know in the comments below. Likewise, if you have any other fun strategies and combos that new Hearthkyn players might want to think of going into any matchup. Or maybe you've fought against some Hearthkyn and maybe you've seen some mistakes they make. Give them a heads up on things to think of throughout a match. As a reminder, our community Discord is linked below. If you're interested in talking tabletop strategy, rules, battle reports, or even showing off your projects, join up. Could be fun. As always, likes for the like god and subscribes for the subscribe throne. I am Kimmerix, and I'll see you in the next one.